And we are starting another work week. I hope you had a great day in church yesterday. My home church is going through a pastor change. Our pastor has accepted a call to another church, and so I am interim pastoring a little bit here, hopefully finding somebody even before our pastor's last date, if the Lord would honor that. But so it was a sweet day yesterday to just help the people to unite and support and acknowledge what God is doing. Seasons come and go, and the same God who ends a season is the same God who started the season. We can rejoice in him. He's unchanging and he's always right. And we certainly thank God for our pastor. He has been a gift to our church for sure, and will be a gift to the next church. Well, I have entitled this one, How to Handle the Sinner. In John chapter 8, we have contrasting examples. You have the judgmental, egocentric Pharisees that have an agenda. And then you have Jesus with a servant's heart with a purpose. And there is a clear difference between them. And so John 8, verse 1 says, Jesus went unto the Mount of Olives, and early in the morning he came again into the temple, and all the people came unto him, and he sat down and taught them. And the scribes and Pharisees brought unto him a woman taken in adultery, and when they had set her in the midst, they say unto him, Master, this woman was taken in adultery in the very act. Now Moses in the law commanded us that such should be stoned. But what sayest thou? They said this, tempting him, that they might have to accuse him. But Jesus stooped down and with his finger wrote on the ground as though he heard them not. So when they continued asking him, he lifted up himself and said unto them, He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her. And again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. Don't you wish you knew what he was writing? Inquiring minds would like to know, right? I mean, it's just one of those times where you wonder, what was it? You know, there's lots of speculation, and that's all that it can be because the Bible doesn't tell us. So you're just speculating. But whatever it was, it changed the tune of those Pharisees and scribes rather quickly, and nobody threw a stone. And so, and they which heard it, being convicted by their own conscience, went out one by one, beginning at the eldest, even unto the last. And Jesus was left alone, and the woman standing in the midst. So the one contrast are these Pharisees who have an agenda, and it's twofold. One is to use this woman as a pawn to try to trap Jesus. It is so sad to have in our world manipulators who are trying to take down authorities that stand in their way or won't give them what they want, or intimidate them in one way or another, or they just want to get even with them. They look for something that they can do to discredit or to be able to make an accusation. And that is exactly what's going on here. Is it's clear the woman is a sinner. It's clear that she has done wrong. It's even clear that she deserves a consequence. And so they bring this sinner to Jesus, not because they were concerned for the sinner, and not even because they wanted to correct the sin. It had nothing to do with it. They were simply using the sinner as a pawn to try to get to the authority, to try to trip him up, to put him in a tough spot. Well, Jesus knew exactly what was going on. And so Jesus just began to write on the ground. And then he said, which one of you is without sin? And then he began to write some more. And one by one, they went away. And so we find in verse 10, when Jesus had lifted up himself and saw none but the woman, he said unto her, Woman, where are those thine accusers? Hath no man condemned thee? In other words, they had a chance to stone her. But whatever it was that Jesus wrote convicted them in their own conscience. Whatever Jesus was dealing with those Pharisees and scribes hit them to the core of their guilt. And so Jesus is not alleviating the responsibility of the woman. He's just simply saying, where are your accusers? She said, No man, Lord. Jesus said unto her, Neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. In other words, Jesus wasn't saying it's no big deal what you were doing. He's just simply saying, I'm not going to stone you. I am going to demonstrate grace. I think you've learned a lesson. I think you can go and make better decisions. It is really a journey of discretion and wisdom for authority to know when to give what consequence for what action. Not everything is a major deal. As much as we would say adultery is a big deal, Jesus is saying, you know what? Dealing with the judgmental, manipulation, egocentric, agenda-driven Pharisees and scribes was a bigger deal than what was going on with the woman. What he needed to solve was how he was going to deal with the Pharisees and the scribes. But he was going to use the grace that he was going to extend as an opportunity for the woman to learn. Sometimes in parenting, you just have to have a teaching moment. You don't have to drop the hammer the first time. You don't have to make it, a major ordeal. Sometimes it's just helping them realize this is out of bounds and don't do it again. Now, if they do it again, it's a different level of infraction in the sense that it's not, being overtaken with temptation or doing something without thinking or even doing something out of ignorance. Now it's doing something out of rebellion. And I think Jesus was saying to the woman, you know better. So I'm not going to stone you, but you can go, but stop it. And I think that's how we need to approach dealing with sinners, is sometimes you've got to deal with the very heart, the very core, the very root of what's going on, as Jesus dealt with the Pharisees and scribes. And they went away convicted. And how he was able to deal with the woman was in grace, and realizing that sometimes you can accomplish just as much showing a little grace and mercy, at least on the front end, to give them a chance to learn it through a scolding or through a correction or through a teaching moment, rather than lowering the hammer in the consequence. And I think we get a little glimpse of Jesus, that Jesus is not there, showing everybody how powerful he is. He's not there showing everybody how tough he is. He's not showing everybody that he can, lower the hammer anytime he wants. He can. That's just not who he is. He wants you to know that he's more concerned for your soul. He's more concerned about what you do from this point forward than he is about your past. The problem with the scribes and Pharisees is this had been a pattern. And until Jesus addressed it at the core, if this would have worked, they would have continued to use this in the future. And so Jesus dealt with it accordingly. I think we have to ask ourselves, am I trying to do something that's making a name for myself or making my life what I want it to be? Or am I reaching out and actually helping the individual, the sinner, to actually address what's going on in their heart? And when they have addressed what's going on in their heart, they can have a different future. And the past can simply be something they learned from. I would tell my boys growing up, a failure is only a bad thing if you don't learn from it, because then you're destined to repeat it. What a wonderful thing to be able to know that God doesn't hold our past against us, that He wants us to live in obedience and holiness in the future. And if we can learn from mistakes and move forward, God is thrilled in that. And we should be as well. And so let's just go about not being judgmental, but coming alongside to try to help people to be more like Jesus. God bless you. I hope you have a great day. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow. God bless.